Hi, so this tutorial will show you how to achieve the kind of like a simple rope animation thing. So if you have a character and it hits the hanging lamp from the ceiling, then you can have this kind of movement. So let's go ahead and destroy everything in this scene, and we'll have to create our geometry. Just a rough geometry will do. Maybe a polycube. Scale it up. Go to our vertex mode, scale it down. We have something that looks kind of like a lamp. Okay, and so I'm not going to create the geometry for the rope, but you can just have to bind it to the joint chain. So let's rename this guy lamp geometry, and we will freeze its transformations and delete its history so it's clean. Let's open my outliner for now. Okay, so we also want to create a controller to control our geometry here. So freeze transform, delete its history, and call this the lamp controller. And so we also don't want to constrain directly onto the geometry, so let's create a locator, create locator, and we'll call this lamp locator, and we'll parent our geometry under the locator. So if we were to constrain anything, we will constrain it to our locator. So that's that, and we'll draw our joint chain. So we'll create, I'm onto my side view now, create a joint chain. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That looks a little long, so maybe 5 will do. And we'll move this joint chain down so it hits. Let's rename our joints. I was just holding X to snap to the grid. So if your rope is this long, then just create a joint chain that's that long. Joint 1 to 5. Let's rename this. Edit, search and replace. Modify, search and replace. Let's name our joint rope joint. Let's just rope joint. Apply. And we want to remove all the digits below. So rope A joint, rope B joint, rope C joint, rope D joint, and rope E joint, and delete the numbers behind. We usually don't want to bind our end joint, so let's call this EFF. That's an effector joint. Let's inspect our local rotation axis. So select the hierarchy and turn on local rotation axis. Display, transform display, local rotation axis. So that's that. And so it looks perfectly oriented because we just drew a straight line down, so there won't be any issue with that. So our joint chain can rotate like that and like that, but we want to intuitively create some control to control this joint chain. So this has a Y value of 12. Usually we want to zero that out, so let's also create a locator. I'll just parent it under this joint and zero out the translations and rotations of the locator and unparent it back to the world. And there we have it. We'll call this the rope joint rope now, and we'll parent our joint chain under our rope now. So if we were to accidentally move this joint, we can zero it out. So the rope joint chain. And so now we will have to draw a curve, and we'll use the curve to power the 5 joints we have here. So let's create a CV curve. we'll point snap it, hold V, click on this guy, and click on this guy. Well, let's look at the options for a moment here. So we'll just create a linear curve, that will be enough. So let's rename this curve. It's the rope curve, CRV. So now we want to create an IK spline. Create IK spline tool, reset tool. We'll just uncheck all this because we already have a curve, and we'll click the top joint, select the top joint, select the bottom joint, and then control select our curve. And that will give us our IK handle. Let's call this IK handle rope underscore IKH, IK for IK handle. And so now we'll have a curve that controls all these 5 joints. So if you move the curve around, the joints will follow. If we go to the CVs of the curve, let's go to component mode. It only has a CV at the top and at the bottom, so maybe we should rebuild our curve. Go to surfaces, edit curve, rebuild curve, and we should have more CVs now. Let's go to component mode, and yeah, and so our curve can control our 5 joints. So we want to have a controller to control this curve, and to do that we can use a joint at the top and a joint at the bottom. We can select, we can duplicate them out from this existing joint chain. So rope E and rope A joint, we'll go to our command and type duplicate dash parent only, and what that does is it duplicates these 2 joints, and then we can parent it to the world. And so we have 2 joints that will control our curve, and that curve will control all our 5 joints. So since these joints are just the driver joints, just make them visually bigger, and we'll call them rope. The bottom one will be the B driver, and the top one will be the A driver. Rope A driver, rope B driver. And so we'll take both our drivers and the curve, and we'll go and smooth bind it like how we would bind the geometry. The animation, skin, bind skin. The default settings are good. Just we want to bind our selected joints, maybe not so much max influence. 4 and 3 is fine. Let's not colorize the skeleton, and bind skin. Boop. So this driver will now control the curve, and the curve now in turn controls the 5 joints we have here. So now this driver, boom, we get this nice motion. But what we don't have is if we rotate this driver, it doesn't rotate all the 5 joints. So we need to set that up. To do that, we click on the IK handle. Let's go into the IK handle, and it should have this advanced twist controls. So we'll turn that on, and we notice that the rotation axis is messed up. So we gotta fix that by using the world type, and we'll set the twist controls world to our A and B drivers. So object rotation up should be the A and B driver, so we'll copy the name of our A driver and our B driver. The rest of the settings are fine, so if you turn on and off and on, it shouldn't have any changes. So now if we turn this driver, it should have this nice sweeping twist. Boom. Yep, that's that, and there you go. So now we'll link it up with our system here. So we have our geometry, and our geometry is under this locator. So we'll take our end joint and control select our locator and do a point constraint, as well as an orient constraint. So now if we turn this driver that will control our geometry. Usually animators will turn off, like show and turn off all the joints, so we want to only have the controllers control the entire rig. So let's take the controller and add our driver joint to the selection and do a parent constraint. So now if we rotate this controller joint, it rotates the driver joint, and our entire rig is working. And also sometimes we want to control the top joint because it can help to get some deformation here. So let's also maybe duplicate our controller and call it a rope control. Hold V, snap here, and let's call this the rope con. Freeze its transform, delete its history, and now we'll use this and parent constraint this controller. So now that's that, and we have a stack of stuff here. All this stuff is not meant for the animator, so we'll group all of this and call this no touch. And for a lamp, it's fine. This is our geometry. I've got a joint chain, so all this we can group it up and call it the lamp rig, and can put like controllers inside our group, and I think that should be fine. So what our animators will see is this controller and this controller. So if you have a character that stands up from the desk and hits the lamp, you can just move this up slightly, and you can use the top joint to get some nice deformation. Let's do some test animation in that case. So I hope this tutorial helps, and thanks for watching. See you next time.